we're going to compare LG's Nanocell LED LCD TV against the company's own OLED, which is basically double the price, so you can judge for yourself whether it's worth paying more for OLED. Hello everyone, Vincent Teo from HDTV Test here. On your left is the LG Nano90, a 4K Nanocell LED LCD television from the South Korean brand, while on your right is the LG CX or C10 OLED. Both TVs are the same screen size of 65 inches, so we can assess upscaling and motion performance on a level playing field. At the time we filmed this video in October 2020, the 65-inch LG Nano90 commanded a street price of £1,100, whereas the 65-inch CX was more than twice the price at £2,300. Just to give you some context as we compare different aspects of picture quality, the LG Nano90 Nanocell TV is still an LED LCD at the end of the day, requiring a backlight which qualifies it as a transmissive display. The C10 OLED, on the other hand, is self-emissive, which means every pixel can be turned on and off independently of each other. As a result, the LG CX OLED is capable of producing true blacks, whereas blacks on the Nano90 looked more like dark grey than black in a dimly lit room due to its IPS LCD panel. The Nano90 is equipped with full array local dimming or FALD, but there are only 32 zones, leading to unavoidable blooming and backlight fluctuations not only on our own custom-authored zone count test pattern, but also in real-world movie content, such as this clip from Gravity as Sandra Bullock is tumbling through space, or this campfire scene from The Revenant with challenging subtitles fading in and out. In comparison, the C10 OLED was just rock solid, exhibiting no blooming or backlight instability at all thanks to pixel-level light control. In this sequence from Batman vs Superman, the top and bottom letterbox bars on the Nano90 never looked anywhere close to black, with frequent halation from adjacent bright objects, compared with the CX OLED, whose letterbox bars were jet black and bloom-free. The local dimming algorithm on the LG Nano90 was also problematic. Here we are displaying a 4% above black window against a black background, and both televisions were showing the window, even though the Nano90 rendered the video brighter due to IPS LCD panel. However, as we went down progressively to a 2% above black window, the Nano90 just switched off its backlight completely, resulting in a black screen when it shouldn't be. The same phenomenon could be observed in this moving near-black quantization test pattern developed by Stacy Spears of Spears & Mansell fame. While the C10 OLED exhibited some flashing artifacts and discontinuous gradation, a large swathe of the test pattern just went missing on the Nano90, owing to the over-aggressive local dimming algorithm, which can also have an effect on bright specular highlights, as seen in this custom-authored test pattern we normally use to test ABL or automatic brightness limiter. When small, the white circle appeared dimmer on the LG Nano90 with some circumferential darkening due to how the local dimming on the television worked. But as the circle expanded to fill the entire screen, the tables were turned, with the OLED looking dimmer because of ABL kicking in. Both televisions could be calibrated to hit accurate colors with natural-looking skin tones, but the picture popped more on the CX OLED, since its true blacks provided the ideal canvas for colors to flourish, unlike the Nanocell LED LCD whose IPS blacks were shallower, and whose bluish backlight is something that the TV's internal LUT constantly has to fight against. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. With more and more people staying home these days, Netflix is continuing to cap the bitrate of certain shows, especially in Europe, which will cause the picture to look softer with more compression artifacts such as macro blocking, pixelation, and noise in dark scenes. What if there's a way to access Netflix servers in another country where streaming bitrate is not capped? This is where a VPN comes in. Surfshark allows you to stream content from another country without needing you to be physically there, so you can watch Netflix in higher bit rates and better picture quality. You can also get more content that's not available in your region, perhaps the US Netflix library which contains more movie titles. For less than the price of a Big Mac per month, you can use Surfshark on as many devices as you want in your household, all at the same time. There's 24/7 live customer support, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and even instructions on how to set up the VPN on your LG or Samsung Smart TV. And for a limited time only, if you use promo code HDTV test, you'll get 83% off and 3 extra months free. So sign up today and give Surfshark a try. I'll put the link in the YouTube description below. Thanks again for your support. In terms of motion, both the Nano90 and the C10 are sample and hold displays, returning a baseline motion resolution of 300 lines on this horizontally scrolling test pattern with true motion off. Although the Nano90 still looked slightly blurrier due to slower pixel response time and very mild black smearing. With true motion engaged using optimized settings, including 120Hz blackframe insertion on the C10, both TVs reached 1080 lines of motion resolution, and again the OLED maintained its slight upper hand in motion clarity courtesy of near instantaneous pixel response time. Ironically, this faster pixel response time was also responsible for the inherent judder in 24p content looking a bit more obvious on the CX OLED compared with the Nano90 LED LCD, even though both sets were able to perform 5.5 pull down correctly to present slow panning shots without telecinic judder. The Alpha 9 Gen 3 processor on the LG CX is more advanced than the Alpha 7 Gen 3 chipset on the Nano90, which may explain some differences in video processing between both TVs. On this SMPTE RP133 test card in standard definition resolution, upscaling on the CX appeared sharper without any increase in ringing, overshoot or fizziness, which transferred across to real-world broadcast material too, with the added advantage of its higher contrast contributing to an increase in perceived sharpness. On this 1080p test pattern from the Spears & Munsell HD benchmark disc, the LG Nano90 also suffered from some corruption in fine chroma detail horizontally, which shifted as the on-screen content changed. Next, screen uniformity. On brighter full-field gray slides, the LG Nano90 exhibited minor dirty screen effect and noticeable darkening along the sides, whereas the C10 OLED just looked exceedingly clean without any DSE, bending or color tinting. The fortunes were reversed when it came to dark uniformity though, with our LG CX review sample showing not only thin vertical streaks typical of consumer OLEDs, but also a darker blotch on the top left and to a lesser extent top right corners. For HDR, peak brightness on our LG CX review unit measured around 200 nits higher than on the Nano90 after calibration to D65 white point. Despite OLED's inbuilt ABL circuitry, bright scenes still looked more impactful with more pop and depth on the C10, while with the Nano90 appearing more washed out because of its IPS blacks, although enabling dynamic tone mapping did go some way towards closing the gap. We generally prefer not to engage dynamic tone mapping on LG OLEDs in the interest of accuracy. Predictably, where the LG CX truly pulled ahead was in dark scenes, retrieving deeper and clearer shadow detail than the Nano90, which was hampered by the limited dynamic range of its IPS LCD panel, regardless of whether LED local dimming was off, low, medium or high. In fact, LG's local dimming algorithm might have crushed even more shadow detail, especially on the higher settings. In terms of 10-bit gradation, the LG Nano90 Nanocell LED LCD actually did better than the C10 OLED, rendering the skies in the 4K Blu-ray of The Martian in a smoother fashion with less posterization. With Dolby Vision content, the Dolby Vision mapping engine on the LG Nano90 seemed to prioritize blooming suppression based on backlight management metadata, reducing the luminance and hence impact of bright specular highlights even more versus the LG C10 OLED. In game mode, input lag with a 60Hz video signal measured 13 milliseconds on the CX and 20 milliseconds on the Nano90 with local dimming engaged. Sending a 120Hz video signal would reduce lag times to 6.5 milliseconds and 12 milliseconds on the CX and Nano90 respectively. In dark scenes, the LG CX OLED produced deeper blacks and clearer shadow detail than the Nano90 LED LCD, even after we engaged dynamic tone mapping on the Nano90. Bright specular highlights did pop more on the CX thanks to higher peak brightness and OLED's per pixel illumination control. Ironically, The two HDMI 2.1 ports on the LG Nano90 supports the full HDMI 2.1 bandwidth of 48 gigabits per second, permitting 4K at 120Hz at 12-bit 444 chroma, whereas the four HDMI 2.1 inputs on the CX OLED are capped to 40 gigabits per second, which is limited to 4K at 120Hz at 10-bit 444, although whether the difference is visible in actual gameplay remains to be seen. Even though the IPS LCD panel on the Nano90 has a reputation of delivering some of the wider viewing angles among LED LCD televisions, it is still comprehensively beaten by the viewing angles of the CX OLED, which hung onto contrast and saturation of axis like a champ, without any blooming or IPS glow. The anti-glare filter on the LG CX muted reflections more effectively than the Nano90, which exhibited a bit more spread, although there's a slight magenta tint on the OLED as light hit the screen. Finally, being self-emissive, the LG CX OLED was prone to image retention, while the Nano90 was totally immune. But this temporary image retention cleared up fairly quickly, and so shouldn't be visible in day-to-day video content. LG has also implemented a number of preventative measures to minimize the risk of permanent screen burn, so in normal use, OLED owners since 2018 shouldn't experience burn-in provided they vary the content they watch, as we and our colleagues at rthings.com have proven in our accelerated OLED burn-in test last year. Let's sum up. If you've been paying attention throughout this video, I know some of you have complained that my voice is so monotonous that it's perfect for sending you to sleep. You can see for yourself that the LG CX OLED handily beats the Nano90 LED LCD in almost every area of picture quality, except in dark uniformity, 10-bit gradation, and temporary image retention. Putting the Nanocell up against OLED is like putting me up against Mike Tyson in a boxing ring. It's the one time I don't wish to last longer than 2 minutes. Now that we've established that OLED technology is superior to Nanocell, only you can decide whether it's worth paying double the price, depending on your budget and circumstances. If you'd like to watch more of our technical TV comparisons, please click here for our most current playlist, and I will see you in the next video.